É em Tomar, cidade templária, fundada em 1160, que foi sede das Ordens do Templo e de Cristo, que se situa a nossa quinta vitivinícola Herdade dos Templários. Terra de costumes e tradições, envolta pelo legado dos Templários, aqui encontramos em 1989 as condições naturais ideais ao cultivo da vinha e cuja produção de vinho presume-se remontar ao período romano. Com uma área de 30 hectares, a Herdade dos Templários contempla 18 hectares de vinhas dispostas em colinas de solos argilocalcários com depósitos de xisto. Nas nossas vinhas estão presentes a aromática casta Fernão Pires ou a Viva Azarindo para os vinhos brancos e a Rainha Touriga Nacional ou a tradicional Castelão para os vinhos tintos, entre outras nobres castas nacionais e internacionais. Uma perfeita conjugação entre a tradição, a tecnologia e o know-how, aliados a uma rigorosa seleção de castas, sob o controle de uma experiente equipa técnica, liderada por Paula Costa, tem-nos permitido produzir em pequena escala grandes vinhos. Levamos nos rótulos as nossas origens e no vinho um sabor com história, prestando homenagem aos cavaleiros templários e às antigas tradições de Tomar na arte de bem fazer o vinho.
Hi everyone, and welcome to take 2 of our Zoom on wine and the Knights Templar. And I'm very happy to be here today. Finally, God is in the house. And for those of you who joined our Zoom the other day, we had a few technical issues, and unfortunately Andy Godts from the Belgian civilian Knights Templar Order OTAC, he couldn't join us, unfortunately. So we decided to just team up with him today, and also we'll be joined by a very special guest from Tomar, Portugal, an oenologist from the actual winery that is the base of the wine that we have created together, Andy and I. So that's going to happen at the end of this presentation, so stay tuned. But I'd like to welcome Andy Godts from Belgium here today. Hello, Andy. How are you?
Hello, Helena. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Finally.
Finally, yes.
We have issues.
Well, technology happens. Technology happens. It's very nice to see you. So I see that you have some wines behind you. So let's just show a little, just before we begin, because I'd like to ask you some questions. Just show them a little bit to our viewers, please. We have in the middle, you see that box with Empress Helena with the cross, the true cross. That is the box of our wine, a wine that I resurrected from history that would have been made by the Knights Templar and drunk by Knights Templar, and it has been written about in Grail romances where the Knights Templar actually drink it. So I'm very happy to have done this project with Andy. He's a modern Knights Templar, so he made the wine like traditionally the Knights Templar would have done, carrying on that tradition, following the recipe that they would have used with the ingredients that we had to source and use from very remote places. I mean, India and other places. That was a lot of fun to do. So, but we wanted a genuine, true, authentic product, and to bring something from the Templar legacy into our present day. So, and I'm very, very happy to have done this project with Andy. I haven't tasted the wine yet, but I look forward to that. So, sorry, go on, Nanny.
It's honestly
Sweet. Well, I didn't kill any Templars yet, so I know you had a wine tasting. So I was explaining this in the wine lecture the other day to all the attendees that I was quite nervous when you were having an evening with dinner and a wine tasting of our wine, Pinham Medieval Spiced Wine St. Helena, because it was the first time anybody was going to really taste it, besides you, of course, you know. And oh my gosh, what if it's too spicy? What if somebody gets sick? You know, I've killed a Knights Templar. That's not a good thing, you know. So, and Stephen, of course, was sneaking behind with his phone, taking those photos and sending them to me. That was quite interesting, you know. So in a way, it was nice because I felt like I was there with all of you. So that was very nice. So thank you. So before we begin with questions, I'm going to interrogate you. I would love for you to tell us, because for those of my fans and people watching this Zoom, they might not know what a modern Knights Templar does and what a modern Knights Templar order does. So I think it would be nice to start there. So can you tell us, Andy, a little bit about you? You are the Grand Officer of OTAC, of the Belgian Knights Templar Order, civilian Knights Templar Order, not military. But it would be lovely for you to explain a little bit about that and your order itself, please. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Helena. We are, like you said, a civilian Templar order. We are the only civilian Templar order in the world. So we are not military. And our main course is helping the helpless. So you have lots of here in Belgium, certainly lots of social works helping people, but there are always a few people who fall down, who fall next to the net. And those people we are trying to help with food, with clothes, now with the Christmas coming, with toys for the children, you know, having people to get a real nice smile. Not only once a year, but every day of the year. Because now all the politicians will come out because it's Christmas and they're doing something good, but it's only once in a year. We are doing it 12 months a year. That's our order.
That is lovely, and that's correct, actually, because I met Andy a few months ago, and he's been in touch with me. He's been sharing all of these things. As the Grand Officer of the Order, I have to say he's been completely involved in all these food events and with the food banks and getting help to those who need it the most, the vulnerable, those who I say, or I call the voiceless, which in a way, what your order is doing and what I'm doing, we have a common goal, because my work in history and with the paranormal is to give a voice back to the voiceless. And in a way, you are also giving them a voice. You are helping these people who really need it. And this is a lovely, lovely initiative. Now, I know that there are a lot of other Knights Templar and bigger orders who are doing the charity, who are doing the things, or claim to be doing them, which is another matter I won't go into today. But I've seen how hard you work, because you have a full-time job and you're doing this with your free time, donating your time and your efforts on the weekend. And you sent me videos of the warehouse, and I've seen where you have everything, the food all organized for people. And that's you know, I have to say, Andy, congratulations. And you know, it's very big effort to do this on top of your everyday life and work. And you do have some help from the order, although if I'm going to be a bit naughty, I wish that more members of the order would follow your example and donate more of their time. I don't say it on the internet, but you know that I see people in private consultations as well for psychology and healing for free as well. And I don't speak about this, but I do donate my time with these people And some of them have access to me 24 hours a day on the phone as well. I think it's really important to give back. And that was really, for me, what the Knights Templar were doing. They had a spiritual pursuit that was working on themselves to become better versions of themselves with the knowledge, with the learning, so that they could help those around them in this world to make it a better place. And you, and this is why we're friends, and this is why we've done a project together, I'm very honored to know you, because you are one of the few, I'm sorry to say, Knights Templar that I've met. I haven't met all of them, but the ones that I have come across, you are one of the very few that is actually doing what the real Knights Templar are doing. So it's an honor to know you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you now a few questions, Andy, about the wines and everything. So you are, as I said, a modern Knights Templar and the Grand Officer of the Belgian Civilian Knights Templar Order, OTAC. But you're also the founder of a lovely initiative, Dos Templarios Belgium, an initiative where you import wines, spirits, and alcoholic beverages from sources that once belonged to the Knights Templar, like Tomar, Portugal, France, and of course, Czech Republic. So can you tell us more? How did this all start, Andy?
So it's how can I explain? When I started up with OTAC, when I became a member or a Templar in OTAC, they did lots of ceremonies. And with the ceremonies, there come drinks, wines. And the wines they gave, they weren't Templar wines. They were like Chateau, I say, or like we say, Chateau de Headache.
I love that.
Very cheap wines.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, doesn't that exist? Doesn't that exist? Real Templar wines. So I started looking. And I found them. And I had a real close connection, a direct connection with Tomar, the real city in Portugal, who made those wines. And that's how it started. Herdade dos Templarios. And then I thought, hey, dos Templarios, it's a nice name. Why don't I put Belgium in it? Because I'm from Belgium. And that's how it became. I started importing that wine and selling that wine. And a part of the gains we use to charity, to sponsor our activities here in Belgium to help the helpless. That's the reason we started up Dos Templarios.
I think it's a wonderful initiative, and that's why I also wanted to become more involved in that. I've always had a fascination with wine myself. At one point I discussed with my own father, who's a historian, and you will all probably be meeting him soon at some point, because we're going to be going together on one last crusade as father and daughter in history. But we once discussed about doing something related with wine, a vineyard as well. My father introduced me to wine and history, I have to say, if he's watching, Dad. So, and it's a lovely, lovely initiative to give back again. And that's why when I met you and when I got to learn of your products and what you were doing as well with the wines, I got very excited. And I like to bring parts of history. I like to dig up really deep in history and unearth relics and bring them into our modern times. And that's what we did with our wine project. And I know we discussed about maybe doing a book together at some point, with Templar recipes and Templar cocktails and all of these things, But the wine, I thought, would be a nice way to start. And I'm working, as you know, on 2 upcoming books on the Knights Templar, The Way of the Rose and The Way of the Stars, with a companion book as well. And there are many areas that wine, and I did a wine lecture the other day, that wine and the Templars are connected. They're connected in ways, I think, that people might not understand. But the wine and the Knights Templar have always gone together. From the earliest times, the Knights Templar would have planted vineyards around their preceptories. They would have made the wine. They would have drunk the wine. Some people have said that the Knights Templar could not drink wine. This is not true. It's in their rule. They drank small amounts of wine, diluted with water and often mixed with aloe vera, which I have myself. It's a healing remedy, and this is probably something they learned in the East. So, and they did many things. They would have revived some of the vines that the Phoenicians brought to Europe and planted. So the Knights Templar very much are responsible for this being on our tables today. And many of their agricultural techniques, using terraces for the runoff of water, moutage, developed by Arnaud de Vilanova, a Catalan physician and a religious reformer. All of these things, you know, that people don't realize, we have to thank the Knights Templar for. So it's lovely that you're doing this, Andy. So we have created our Pimen wine using as a base the beautiful red wine Val d'Adonache from the vineyards of Tomar, Portugal, once home to the Knights Templar and later the Order of Christ, which, as we all know, is essentially the same as the Order, which remained unchanged with all its possessions, but simply changed its name to avoid persecution, following, of course, the arrests of 1307 in France. So I'll be traveling to Tomar, Portugal next year with you, Andy, and the Knights Templar from Belgium. And although I know Portugal quite well, I've never visited Tomar, nor attended any Templar celebrations. What can you tell me about Tomar and the celebrations, and also the wine that you're importing from Tomar?
Now, Tomar is not such a big city. It's a small city, but the castle is just so beautiful, and the convento is so beautiful. Like you know, as a historian, Templars got persecuted. They ran away, and a few of them, or lots of them, went to Portugal and to Tomar. And every year, the second weekend of July, it's a nice Templar festival where thousands of Templars worldwide come.
Já estão ligados. Tá bem?
Oh.
Eles vão que eu tenho que falar.
Hello, Hernani. Welcome. We were waiting for you. How are you?
Everything fine, thank you.
Great. Nice to have you with us. Ah, hello.
I'm very
Nice to meet you.
very beautiful place.
Nice to meet you. So I was actually in the middle of asking Andy some of the questions, interviewing, but since you've joined us now, and I think because you are, you know, on the move today, you are traveling, I wonder, Andy, if we can just maybe go to Hernani and then come back to you. I wonder, is that okay, guys? Yeah.
Well, perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
He's the ideal person to talk about.
Okay. So I have some questions for you. Where are you? Where are you right now? What's behind you?
In the city called Rio Maior, and I'm in a place where they extract salt from an underground salt mine.
Oh.
I'll give you a picture here if I just can.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So,
I don't know how to work, so.
Oh, don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. That's lovely. Oh, wow. Would you call those? I know in Spanish we call them salinas. Would that be? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And the particularity about these salinas, it's not salt or water from the ocean, from the sea.
Oh.
Yes, they have a small well where they have underground water from a salt mine, and then they extract the water, and the water dries, and you get a salt that's 5 times more salty than the salt from the water, from the sea.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know this. You learn something new every day. I am very much a foodie, and I've gone sometimes to restaurants, I'm guilty of this, where you actually have a menu of different types of salt to have with your food and different types of water to drink as well. You know, it's a thing now. It's a foodie trend. But that's lovely. I didn't know that about Portuguese salinas. So thank you for explaining that. So I'm going to start with asking you, the first question I have for you is to tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know to explain to people, so you are from the vineyards importing wine from. So our dad is Dos Templarios, and you're an enologist. So tell us a little bit how you got to work there, how your career, how you decided to get into wine, and a little bit about the vineyards, please.
Well, it's always difficult to speak of ourselves, but I'll try to make it. So I was born actually in the north of Portugal, where, well, Portugal is everywhere. It's a wine and vineyards place. So you cultivate vineyards all over Portugal. And when I decided to make my degree, there was only one place where I can study enology, also in a city called Vila Real, or the city from the king. It's the translation, or the village of the king, actually. And after that, I made my final year, where I made a study about three Portuguese grape varieties in the winery in the center of Portugal. And fortunately, the people managing the winery, they like the way that I work, and they invited me to start working with them. They were one of the biggest wineries in Portugal, so I had the opportunity to learn a lot about wine, about grapes, about vineyards, about the culture, about surrounding wine. Later, I had the opportunity to start my own business as a winemaker consultant. So I started working with several wineries in the center of Portugal, and one of the first was actually Herdade dos Templarios in Tomar.
Wow.
So I've been working with them for maybe more than 1 decade and a half, maybe 17 years or something.
Wow, that's a long time.
And we've been developed a good partnership, a good collaboration, I think.
Well, we are going to have some talks, because I love wine, and I'm very interested not just in the history of wine, but I love wine itself. I've lived all over the world. My father was a diplomat. He traveled, lived, and of course, wine was a part of all these engagements socially that we had to attend. So from a very young age, as a little girl, I got introduced to wine drinking, and I'm going to ask you about particular vines and a few of your wines, if you let me, but I'd love to have a chat with you at some point and catch up on our own as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about the vineyards? And my question here is going to be a little bit strange, but I gave a wine Zoom the other day, which I'll send it to you so you can watch, and it was called The Elixir of Life, Wine and the Knights Templar. And I think wine history with regards to the Templars has been very neglected, and people don't really know enough about it, even though we do have records, we do have the history. It's recorded in many areas. It's a very rich history. And I was telling Andy that we owe the Knights Templar a lot, because this glass of wine that I have here today would probably not be here today if it wasn't for the Knights Templar, because not only did they make wine and import wine, and a lot of people don't know that near their preceptories, they would actually plant vineyards, and each preceptory would make their own wine, which would be consumed by the Knights Templar in moderate small quantities, but they did drink wine. There's a lot of confusion with that, and then they would export it. But they also revived and planted some of the vines that the Phoenicians brought us to Europe, and they developed techniques like moutage and all these things, which I'm going to ask you. So We owe so much. I get very excited, you know, because I think we owe so much to the Knights Templar and the wine, the elixir, the nectar of the gods that we drink today. So could you tell us a little bit more about the vineyard, please?
Yes, our vineyards in Tomar, they are around 17 hectares, where we have Portuguese grape varieties as well as international.
Right.
And the idea of the international grape varieties was to express that connection with the Knight Templars, because they came from outside Portugal to Portugal, so they bring also their own varieties, and they cultivate it here in Portugal. So it's important to have that and to acknowledge that. And they always, and for me it's fascinating because they always focus a lot on knowledge. They want to know more. And well, sometimes how do you say it in English? We start a conversation about wine, and other things start to appear in our mind. And for me, when I think the Knight Templars, you have to remember also they give the Order of Christ in Portugal to develop all the knowledge and the ships to go everywhere in the world. They were based on the knowledge of the Knight Templars, because they were the order in Portugal. We kept all the goods, and we didn't pursue them. In fact, we received several from Europe, because that knowledge was important. And specifically about the vineyards, I have it's been challenging to find information. I found some things about cultivation in France, yes, but I like to find more and more information, because I think there must be historians and archives with a lot of information about wine and Templars all over the Mediterranean countries, because not only they developed here in Europe, but also around in the European, in the Mediterranean countries.
So you're going to love the Zoom lecture that I did, because it's one of the areas that I love, and I have done the research, and I'm still doing the research on wine, but I actually talked about this. I started with not Mesopotamia, but Armenia being the cradle of wine. And I went from Armenia to Mesopotamia, to Phoenicia, to the Etruscans, to Greece, to Rome. And of course, I talked about Italy as well, and then France and the Iberian Peninsula. And I talked about Portugal. And Portugal, of course, the Kingdom of Portugal was the first European nation, and it was Templar. And that's lovely, lovely. I have to say, you mentioned the Order of Christ. And in Spain, the situation after 1307, when the Templars were arrested in France, was very similar, because we didn't imprison them quickly. And in fact, we had some of our orders became, like the Knights Templar in Portugal, became the Order of Christ, which simply changed the name, but they still had the same properties and everything, you know. We had the Order of Montesa do the same thing in Spain. So, I mean, the Portuguese in Spain, you know, my mother is from Spain, from the north of Spain. We are neighbors. And my grandfather was from Galicia, so on top of Portugal. And I'm doing a lot of research. And I told Andy that when I come and see you guys in the summer in Portugal, I'm going to drive down from the north of Spain through Braga, which Braga is not mentioned enough. I do not know why. I mean, I think maybe it's a language barrier. I speak most European languages, so I don't have a problem doing research in Catalan, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, English. even Scandinavian languages and a bit of German. But Braga was almost more important than Santiago de Compostela, and it was the first place that the Knights Templar arrived to. So, and that's not mentioned because people will mention Tomar, Castelmarín, but they will never talk about Braga. And I'm going to put Braga in Portugal on the map properly. And with wines, you have to watch my wine Zoom and you'll see what I've done. But we can talk, and I will give you more information as well. I have one more question to ask you about the vineyard, and then I want to ask you a couple more things, if that's okay. And then we'll go back to Andy. Andy, is that all right? Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
So what my specific question, if you know, you might not know, but maybe I can find out for us, is, yes, the area of Tomar was given to the Knights Templar, and then it became the headquarters of the Order of Christ. But my specific question is, the actual land of the vineyard, do we actually know who it belonged to? Was there, because normally where there is a Knights Templar preceptory in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy, there will be a vineyard. In France, there will be a vineyard or remains very nearby or where the preceptory was. So I'd love to know if you found out anything about this.
I cannot tell you that for sure, because I don't have the documentation.
Right.
Thinking about how Tomar is, the city is,
yes,
where the castle was, where the river is, the land over the river, it's not good for vineyard production.
Okay.
So the area where the vineyards are certainly were from the Templars.
That's what I wanted to know. So now I'm really enjoying this. Obrigado.
Makes sense about an agriculture perspective. Yes. That's what makes sense. And actually, they were given not only the city, but all the territory around the city.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Much kilometers from Tomar.
Yes.
Were they won. And actually, they went to Tomar, but they were given Santarém. Initially, they were going to be in Santarém. Santarém will be the capital of the Templars in Portugal. But the bishop of Lisbon also had strong position with the king, and he said, no, Santarém, it's ours. So the king has to make an agreement with the Knight Templars, and he gave him Tomar. And the first Gualdin Pais was the first, help me with the name, Grand Master.
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
It was the person responsible for developing the castle and the new architecture that he bring to the castle in Portugal.
But I mean, Portugal has been, the research I'm doing is quite groundbreaking because I talk about not 9 founding knights, but I talk about 11. And Spain also being involved in that, but also Portugal. And Portugal, a lot of people don't know. I have to mention a colleague, a professional colleague, Freddie Silva, alternative historian Freddie Silva, who is Portuguese of origin. He's been doing a lot of really good work on Portugal and the Knights Templar, and I very much concur with his work. And his research on Portugal puts Portugal on the map quite early. But before the first Grand Master, we can actually talk about the son of Tareja and Count Henry signing that charter of Portugal saying, I am a brother.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, he's not a Grand Master, but, he is connected. He is the same blood. He is a brother.
He felt that at least if he didn't, because he was a king, he didn't maybe can join, but he certainly in spirit, he felt like a brother of the Knight Templars. Certainly, that's That's
and
the
the seal that that charter is made of, you know, Portugal, or some people like Freddie talks about the Grail, Portu o Graal,
yeah.
Through you the Grail. So maybe the Grail was in Portugal. I don't know, but I've got another question to ask you. So going back to the vineyard. 1 second here. Let me just. So the festivals. Andy was mentioning festivals in Tomar, Portugal, and of course, I think when we're going to be there in the summer, there's going to be a Knights Templar celebration. Now, I understand there's a festival held in Tomar that has to do with wine and bread, tabuleiros. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Anani?
Yes, that's a celebration of the Holy Spirit, and it was it's called tabuleiros because you have the tabuleiros where you have food, bread, and wine, and it's almost going back to Mother Nature. If I am explaining,
I love this.
Well,
I love this.
And it was the spirit of the powerful will give something back to the poor, to the people working, celebrating the Holy Spirit. And when you speak about celebrating the Holy Spirit, you are talking about a very specific part of the Christianhood.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mentioned in my wine Zoom that you will see yesterday that for me, wine, which in ancient times, in the times of the Templar, wouldn't have been drunk like this. It was diluted with water and other things, sometimes oil, sometimes honey, herbs, even snake venom, you know, but I went into initiation rites the other day. But wine was not just drunk in a social context. We see it in the Grail romances, but it was considered a threshold, a door, connecting to the spirit world, connecting to our ancestors, connecting to the dead, and connecting to ourselves too. And it was believed to as a nectar of the gods and as a threshold, as a door to contain the spirit very much. And it's really nice that you mentioned the feminine here as well, Mother Nature, because of course in Portugal you do have a cult in many of the Templar properties to Sin, the goddess Sin and Cybele, and their feminine goddesses, of course, connected to the earth. And I spoke yesterday, I was speaking about the origins of wine, and I took people through a psychogeographical exploration, you know, which was lovely because I wanted them to feel with their souls the places that were important for wine, because soul, wine, spirit, it is in wine. It's not just a drink. But when I did this, we mentioned in Egypt and we mentioned Phoenicia as well, and certain areas known as these lands were connected, and they were known as the land of the left-hand path, and the left always being associated with the goddess, the nature. And it's lovely that you brought this up because it really connects with what I mentioned. You know,
you certainly know, but the ancient religions in Portugal were mainly from feminine gods.
Yes.
And that's why even today, the mother of Jesus Christ, Mary, is worshipped, and the crown of Portugal, the only person that can use the crown, because the king that gave him to them, it's Mary, the mother of Christ.
I did not know this. This is lovely.
The king of Portugal didn't use the
crown. I did not know that. See, I have my first book on the Templars is called The Way of the Rose, and it's all about the divine feminine with the Knights Templar. So I'm going to have a little chat with you about that. I didn't know that. That's really nice.
curious. I'm just curious. I'm no specialist.
No, but it's you know what, the myths. I do a lot of work with mythopoetics. The myths that are born from the land and have no author, and they're born from the land because people worship this geography, and that's how we get these folk tales. And there's always an element of truth in these myths, you know. So it's very important. So we'll definitely have to have a chat. And the divine feminine, for me, the earlier religions, this is something that I feel that the Knights Templar were very much following. For me, they were not Catholics, they were Gnostics, and they were following the earlier worship. And yes, they believed in God. They were not Satanists or, you know, doing dark magic or anything like that. But for them, God was the union of the feminine and the masculine. And we talk a lot in Hebrew mysticism of the Shekinah, the Shekinah, the dove, the rose, which is the Holy Spirit. So this is lovely. Thank you for that. So I was going to ask you about wine processes, and I mentioned before Arnaldo de Vilanova, the Catalan physician and religious reformer, who came up with moutage, which I understand increases both the alcohol content and the sweetness of a wine. So could you tell people, for people who don't know about wines, could you maybe explain this to us? And do you actually use this process yourselves as well?
Sorry, you have to repeat
oh, yes.
the question.
Yes, okay, sorry. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I was talking about Arnaldo de Vilanova, the Catalan physician and religious reformer who came up with moutage, the technique that increases the alcohol content and the sugar of a wine, which stops the action of the yeasts and it keeps a certain amount of sugar, making it a sweet wine. And this happened around the 13th century. So could you tell us a little bit more for the people who don't know about wines and how this technique works, what moutage is, and if you use moutage in any of your wines at all? Do you have any sweeter wines?
Yes, we actually had the Celium. Celium, it's the name of the city of Tomar, or the territory of Tomar, during the Roman occupation or the Roman governance of the peninsula. And we produced this wine as a memory of those times and our connection with the territory as well. Celium, it's a wine made from a very particular grape variety called Muscatel Roxo.
I was going to ask you about that.
It's a Moscato with a very particular coloration.
Yes.
It was almost extinct, and some wineries more to the south, and we in the Tejo region decided that we must protect this grape variety because we also felt that the grape variety made very special wines.
Right.
And we do it like a Porto wine style. So we stop the fermentation when we felt that's needed, and we'd add spirit, a wine spirit, aguardiente. And we stop the fermentation, and you get some sugar, and that's the way that we produce this very special wine, very fruity, with a lot of orange notes.
I've seen the color is lovely. The color is lovely. I have seen that. That's why I wanted to ask you. So you read my mind, because I was going to ask you about this grape variety. I love Moscatel. We have really good Moscatel in the south of Spain. I lived for a while in the Costa Blanca, so Alicante, all of these areas which have great grapes, which I think you're using one of their grapes as well. Maybe Alicante Bouchette. I think you're using that one. Yeah, okay, and I'm used to that grape, but that's, so in Alicante, some of the Moscatel that I've tried is based on the Alexandria grape. So it's different, totally different, and the color is different and everything.
Completely different.
Well, I have not tried yours, so when I come over to Tomar, to Portugal,
you certainly are invited to have a drink and have to have a taste with us.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that. I'd love that. I have one more question for you, Nani. You've been great. Thank you so much for everything. So my last question is, can you share with us just 3 of your favorite wines from the vineyard? 3 of your favorites. I know, difficult. Maybe Andy has them there, so maybe Andy can show some.
Like every kid, every children, our last children, it's the most that we cheer most, even if we like all of them.
Right.
And Andy is showing the Grande Escolha from Touriga Nacional. That's a Portuguese grape variety.
Yes.
And certainly it's one of my favorite children.
Babies, yes, lovely babies.
Yes, and this grape variety, it's great. It has a very high potential. It's typical from the Port region as well, but here in Tomar, it develops a very fruity, but also with a little bit of acidity that gives it longevity.
Oh,
and
okay.
For that, we aged in oak barrels.
I like that.
French oak barrels.
Yes.
From a Portuguese oak company. And that particular grape variety every year show us that we really have to make something special about her. And this Grande Escolha, and Grande Escolha means special selection, really shows the potential of this grape variety in our vineyards. Let me tell you also a little bit about the geology of
yes,
the vineyard.
please, because I've seen that you have shale on your terroir, so I like that. Go on.
Clay,
yes.
but also with some schists, and that makes a very particularly land, very different from all the region, the Teru region, but also very different from the north of Portugal. That's more schists, granite. So we have a blend of 2 completely different types of soil, and we have to acknowledge that the grape starts in the soil, and it develops because of the sun, the water, of course, what we make in the vineyard, but the soil is very important, and it gives character to the grapes, and that character really shows in the wine. It's a very particular, very interesting wine, very Portuguese wine, because we are used to drink wine with food, so you can have it alone and enjoy the wine, but if you have something to eat with a wine, the experience will be much greater. Of course, we also have the Convento de Tomar.
I like that one. Yes, I was drinking that in the last and well, today actually. So so I don't have the bottle because I finished the bottle. That's the last left, but lovely.
Much
but I have these here as well.
I don't have any wine to drink right now. But that's a very interesting wine, and it was the first brand from the winery that I developed from start. I developed everything about that particular brand.
Right.
So it was really challenging what I have to achieve. It was in 2011, the first vintage that we made this wine. And I really have to show all the potential that we had in the vineyards and all the potential that we can make with a wine that's very particular Portuguese, that's a blend. And we in Portugal, we really do great blends. The blend, it's when you add several types of grape varieties to produce the same wine. And fortunately, I think I as a winemaker, I try to respect a lot what the grapes are. And I saw the potential of the grapes, and what I do is just to respect the grapes, add something when I think they should be in an oak barrel, and if the oak barrel adds something to the wine, then it goes. Particularly these two types of wine, I think that the oak barrel really improves the quality of the wine. And so Convento de Tomar, also a very important wine. I talked about Celium as well.
Yes.
But I'm not saying that the brand Herdade de Tomar, because it's the name of the winery, we also have very, very dedication to the quality.
I have tried that, and I am drinking it today. And it is very rich. It is very, very full of, full-bodied. But it's a wine that, like the history perhaps of Tomar, you can taste it in layers. It's sort of, you start tasting it, and then there's more to it, and then there's more, and it's really unique. It's really nice. And I have to mention your rosé. I have always preferred, and the Spanish are going to kill me for this, but I have always preferred Portuguese rosés, and I really loved your rosé. I thought it was wonderful. So, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, Hernani, it has been a pleasure to have you with us, and thank you for taking time out today on your family day out and showing us the Salinas and everything. It's been wonderful. So we will have to have a catch up, and I will email you and be in touch with you as well. So, molto obrigado. And
thank you very much for me as well, from the winery as well. We thank you for this time, to Andy as well for giving me the opportunity to know you, to speak. In Portugal, we like to say there's more to wine than a wine drink or a drink. It's philosophy, it's friendship, it's knowing new people.
That's true. Well, it has brought us together. Andy's now a friend of mine, and I've met you. And it's more than that. I mean, for me, it's definitely a doorway, a portal to all sorts of opportunities and possibilities, not just the gods and the other world and yourself. But it opens so many doors. Wine is just fantastic. What can I say? In moderation, of course, I have to add that, so people don't go crazy. But I mean, I try and drink a glass of wine regularly. Maybe not every day, but I do try. I don't drink much, but I think it has helped. I'm a woman. It is anti-aging. It is healthy for you. I mean, people, will often comment and ask, and they don't know how old I am. And well, Andy knows, I don't mind saying it. I'm 47, but they won't believe me. And I think wine was a secret ingredient for the Templars, but also the Egyptians. The Egyptians didn't age either. They lived until 70 years old, and that was drunk by the pharaohs, because the normal people would have drunk beer. So I think the elixir of life, definitely. But also happiness, perhaps, and friendship, and many, many lovely things. So thank you so much for having us and joining us. I shall bid you farewell for now, and I hope to be in touch soon and definitely see you in person in Tomar. And I'm going to continue with Andy now. So if you have to go, if you want to stay, you can stay. If you have to go,
I really
have to go. No?
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry.
No worries. Enjoy your Sunday. And I will send this to you once it's edited and done. So thank you.
And
thank you. Bye.
And everybody listening to us. Thank you.
Bye. Pleasure.
Obrigado, Ana.
Obrigado.
Obrigado. Right, Andy. So back to you. So that was an unexpected.
Nice surprise.
Well, it's great. It's great. He was lovely. He was lovely. I think I could talk to him for hours. And I'm definitely going to sneak into his winery and try all the wines.
Like I said before, Helena, when I was searching for a Templar-related wine, I got connected with Tomar. Now you know why.
Yes,
you know,
no, I understand.
He's the winemaker. When you meet the owner,
yes.
they are so beautiful people. The connection was there. They're all Templars, you know.
Yes,
they talk about Templars. It's in their soul. It's in their heart. That made the connection real. I love them. You know, I just love them.
I love seeing how passionate you are today. Wine is drinking. You should be drinking as well. I've said this to you, and we've had a lot of conversations because you came to me, and that's how we met also for mentorship and learning about the Templars more. And I've said to you that I don't know much about modern Knights Templar orders. I know about the historic Templars. I don't know much about the modern ones, and I'm trying to learn about them because there's so many. But for me, being Templar is more than even Templar descendants, having it in your blood. It's in your heart. They followed the knowledge of the heart, like the Cathars, the book of love, the religion of love, tolerance. And being Templar shines through in your actions, in the way you behave, not in the cape or the medals or the order that you belong to or you don't belong to. It's in your heart and soul. And Ernani might not be a Templar of an order, but he has a Templar heart and soul. And so does this wine and the vineyard. So I can see it. And I'm very happy to have in some way become a part of what you're doing with the wine as well. And Ernani, because it's lovely. And I had to ask that question about the vineyard being Knights Templar land, because I thought it would be, but, you know, I had to put it out there. So I will be working with them as well to supply them with more information, history, so that they can put it on their website and share. So we're going to go back to your questions, if that's okay, Andy.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Yep.
So going back to, and if you can show people the wines that we have, because if you can grab the box of the Helena wine, and is the bottle in there as well or not?
I put it out. So here's the bottle.
Okay. Well, show the people a little bit the bottle. Yeah, there you go. That's the label. Now, I do have it separately, so I'll put that. And that's a lovely Empress Helena, who was the world's first archaeologist and a woman. So for me, being a historian, and I like to talk about women a lot, the men are important too, but we have neglected women in history. And she was the world's first archaeologist, and she's important to the Knights Templar because she discovered the true cross that supposedly Christ, and I say supposedly because there are a lot of opinions about this, whether he was crucified or not, but she discovered the true cross that was important to the Templars and other groups. She discovered the true cross and the nails of Christ, and she was an exceptional woman for her time. And I have to mention her. I don't know if people will remember me in history someday. I hope they do, but I hope that I can give back and make changes and contribute to history like she did. And the Templars dedicated chapels to her, holy wells in the Hook where I lived, which is land given to the Knights Templar by Henry II, husband of Eleanor of Aquitaine, in 1180. There was a holy well to St. Helena and a chapel. So that was lovely for me. You know, I felt right at home. So I had to name the wine after her. I think she deserves it. The world's first archaeologist. So having a moment for her. So talking about our wine, without revealing any secrets now of our artisan wine, which the recipe, now I have to say, the recipe has been mentioned by some historians. It's hard to find it, okay? But there are many variations of this recipe, and sometimes it's confused with a drink that was also a medieval spiced wine called Hippocras. It's not the same thing. Pimen is not the same thing, different ingredients, and there are different versions of pimen too. So I really had to do my homework here, and I'm not going to reveal any more for now. But we do use a star ingredient in our wine, spikenard, which was used by Mary Magdalene to anoint Jesus. And I've been consuming it in tea as ground spikenard root, and I've also been working with it. I have it here in oils used for anointing. Anointing Christ, actually the name Christ means the anointed one, the initiate. So Mary Magdalene was a priestess, and she was an initiatrix, initiating Christ. And that is where the name of the Knights Templar, the poor fellow soldiers of the Order of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, comes from. Christ is not Jesus, okay? It did exist prior to Jesus. Now, Jesus is a Christ, but Christos, the term, existed prior to Jesus. And this is something that we need to bear in mind when we look at what the Templars were actually doing. So I do have a photo, because you don't have them today, of the decanters. So I had the recipe and sourced the ingredients, and then got Andy to make the artisan wine using the methods that would have been used in the same way that the Knights Templar would have made it. And then we have a picture that I will show resting. The wine was resting for a while in these decanters, a sleeping beauty. Now, when we met, Andy, you wanted mentorship on the Knights Templar, and I promised to do all in my power to share everything I know and my discoveries to restore the dignity and honor of the Knights Templar, but also to show the world who they really were, because they've been wanting to speak for a long time. We may be fascinated by their Templars, but their true story, save for their military involvement and alleged organizational structure and the banking and all of these things, hasn't really been told. So in my promise to give a voice to the voiceless, the vulnerable, as we mentioned before, and as a truth seeker, as much like the true cross found by Helena, who is on our wine, I stand for truth and justice. And I did resurrect, I feel I resurrected a small part of history in our joint collaboration. And that's how this wine was born. So can you tell us how this experience of carrying on the legacy of the true historic Knights Templar, as a Templar Knight yourself, has felt for you?
Now, to be honest, when I started with the Knights Templars, I only knew about the Crusades. And then I heard about their protecting the pilgrims to go to the Holy Land. Then I met you, and I received a whole other vision of what the Knights Templars really are. You know, they are so much more than that. They don't hate Muslims. You know, the modern Knight Templars, they all hate Muslims, but the real Knight Templars didn't. They didn't hate Muslims. They didn't hate other religions. There was no war. Yeah, there were the Crusades, but not by the Templars that I learned from you. So it's much, much, much more than in the beginning that I learned. So you learned me so much. You opened my eyes in everything of this, and I'm trying to pass that in our order, because there still are modern Templars who don't believe that. So piece by piece, by person, I'm trying to change it with your help, of course.
Thank you.
So it's really an honor to get the teachings that you give me. And maybe I don't speak much, but I learn much. So.
But spiritually, before I get into things, so I mean, yes, the Knights Templar were involved in the Crusades, but the thing is, we have a different. It's been exaggerated, if you will, because if you actually look at the number of Knights Templar in Jerusalem at any given time, there were never more than 300 Knights Templar. So let's look at the facts, because there have been very good military historians here. Alain de Morger, Barber has done some things as well. I like Alan J. Foran. He's my favorite, and he's done a lot of really great work in the Iberian Peninsula, and I really, really treasure his work. But if we actually look at their military involvement with the Crusades, it wasn't as big and as exaggerated as we are told, actually. And going back to the charges that actually arrested the Templars, the main charge, now you know because you did the lecture with me as well, out of 127 charges that the order was charged, the main charge was heresy. And heresy happened because the Knights Templar, the way they were protecting pilgrims more, because I'm not going to entertain the pilgrim thing today, but it's not correct. They were never founded to protect the pilgrims. We don't even have evidence for that. And 9 or 11 initial founding knights could not patrol the route to Jaffa like that. And they were never seen. They were digging in temples. So let's just end that right now. There is a lot of evidence against that notion. They did support pilgrimage protection later on, yes. And they even took pilgrims in their own boats and so on. But they were never founded for that, okay? But they did protect pilgrims in other ways. And I'm the daughter of a diplomat, and I can see this. The Knights Templar were the world's first modern diplomats, or among the first, because they entered into agreements with the people of the places they went to. Like, for example, in the Holy Land, in the Middle East, they entered into agreements with the assassins. And that helped keep the peace. But it also meant that they were not seen as Christians. They were seen as Muslim sympathizers. Another charge that was thrown at the Cathars as well. And this would cost them. This would cost them dearly. This would bring them down. And that is why they were charged with heresy. But they practiced what poet Ibn Arabi mentioned, the religion of love, which really were the teachings of Jesus Christ, actually, if we're honest. And Jesus Christ, not just Jesus, but Mary Magdalene and John the Baptist, which came from the early church prior to the Church of Rome. So that is, if we want to entertain that. And that, for me, is a very spiritual thing. I won't take the time today to go into religion or anything, but how has this felt for you, knowing some of these things now and working on this wine and learning or seeing a different side of the Templars than the world has known, I think? How do you feel?
Really breathtaking, open-minded. My eyes really got opened because I had a whole other vision before, you know. And through the teachings, I really know now what it really is, what it really meant to be a Templar. So
in the heart, isn't it? In the heart.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they had such a noble purpose, a more noble purpose than fighting crusades or banking or all these things, which they were involved in, of course, but that wasn't why they were set up. It was never that. So I think we have a lot to learn from them. So, Andy, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions and then we'll be done, okay? So,
okay.
We mentioned just now that at the end of the summer when our paths crossed, you've mentioned the experience and what has been for you. And when I do some of my lectures and talks, I've been beginning to say something which has made me giggle a little bit. And some people, some of my friends, make the world Templar again. I think that is very much one of my missions at the moment. And I feel that this was the mission of the Knights Templar. They were improving, working on themselves to become better men, but also ultimately to give their best version to those around them and to the world, to make this a better place. And now their mission, I feel, in a way, has become mine. at least I'm trying. I cannot change the world on my own, but I certainly want to do my bit to contribute to that. And I hope to awaken many, not just Templars, but all those who, like them, lead with their hearts and want to become the best version of themselves and make this world a better place. So it is an honor to have crossed paths with you, Andy, because I feel that you understand this, that you see this now. And, you know, these men were arrested and tried for crimes they never committed. And what happened to them really hurts me. And this is why I also, in my mission is to restore their name properly and show the world what they were really doing, because there was no greater, nobler purpose than what the Knights Templar did. So can you show you've shown some of the wines before, but I'd like you to pick a few favorites, just maybe 2 of the wines that you have behind you, and maybe explain to the audience of why they're your favorites.
Like the same Hernani said, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We have like the Grande Escolia, you know, and the rosé is
the rosé is wonderful.
That's really wonderful. And you spoke about the Spanish rosé.
Yes,
and
I did.
Tell you, I have people living next to me who have an apartment in Barcelona. They're all Spanish, you know. But one thing they love really, really, really much, that's our Portuguese rosé.
Yes.
And I got Spanish people coming over to my place buying the Portuguese rosé. They said we never tasted that even a better rosé wine than that one. And
I agree. I agree.
You know, it's not because I'm selling it, because it's normal. I'll say it's the best one because I'm selling it, but it's just that. It's just that. You know, people from Spain, from other countries, all say it's the best-selling rosé wine I have.
I agree. I mentioned I've been in Portugal quite a lot with my family, and as a little girl, I spent many trips in Portugal, in Lisbon, of all places. I remember my days. We always stayed in the same place, in a Sheraton hotel in Lisbon, which had a wonderful swimming pool. I remember in a burger bar and all these things. And the sun there is wonderful in the summer. I remember that. And in Oporto, I was in Oporto quite a lot as well. And the one thing that I always remembered, because of course I would be dragged to outings with my parents and dinners with people and government people as well. The one thing that stuck with me in those days, and I would have been quite a young girl, I think the last trip I did with them, I would have been 17 or 18, was the rosé, the Portugal. You know, and it has become a thing. It brings back memories to me from those days that I was in Portugal, and I've seen the Torre de Belém in Lisbon and all these places and the fortresses. And I haven't explored Portugal as much as I like, so hopefully now I will. But the rosé is something that I keep coming back to, so I totally can see why they would appreciate it, you know.
Another special one is the psyllium, like Hernani said.
Yes,
you know, because it's a little more sweet. It's a liquor wine. You know, you can compare it with a Porto or a French with Pinot de Charente.
Yes.
You can compare it with that. And you know what, it's in the summertime, and you really need to try that in the summertime. You put it in with tonic water, and ice. It's really just fantastic.
Are you suggesting a new recipe for a Templar cocktail here? I think we'll have to do something about that.
That is just fantastic, because I told a few people that, and they just love it. They just buy the psyllium wine just to mix it with tonic and ice.
It sounds amazing. I haven't tried it yet, but you know what? I had a look at the website, of your website, which is now, I'm going to say, I will put when I edit this little video, I will put a little slide with your details for people to go onto your website, because they can order a wonderful Pimen medieval spiced wine in your website. So that's available for everybody to order from everywhere. If you're in the US or the UK, message Andy, because timing, deliveries, things might be different, you know, but anybody in the EU, Irish people, go for it. You won't regret it. It's wonderful. And the website now is in English and Spanish. I did the translation of that. So in Dutch, of course, and French. I saw you had some French on there as well. I hadn't seen that before. Yes. So it's wonderful. So I will put a slide so that people can order some of these wines that you showed me. But the Moscatel Rosso that Nani was mentioning, it caught my eye. And I saw that on their website too, because I'm a fan of Moscatel. I quite like it as a dessert wine. I think it's a great wine. But I don't know that Portuguese grape. So I'm really, really looking forward to trying that one. So Andy, we're going to wrap it up here, if that's good for you.
Yeah. Good.
Is there anything else that you would like to add before we go for people, or about the wines, or anything in particular?
No, just order, taste them, enjoy it, but don't drink and drive.
No. And when you do drink, remember that you will live forever.
Yeah. The elixir of life.
The Holy Grail, in a way, in a sense. So people, I mean, I don't want to say anything, but I had cancer in 2019, and I've returned like Freya. I've come back with a vengeance, stronger, more resilient. And I also broke my leg, but don't mind me, I break things all the time. So I probably break something in Tomar. Shall I say that? No. You'll have to carry me. I'll have to be carried out of Tomar by the Knights Templar. That'll be quite funny. I hope you're planning for this.
There are many of them there, so that won't be a problem.
But I'm looking forward to that, Andy. So thank you. So I'll stop with the recording here, and I'll package this all nicely together and then share it on Facebook and everything later on. So thank you so much for joining me in all my crazy adventures. You know, you're a true Knight Templar, and I'm very proud to know you.
It's a real honor, Helena. It's a real honor for me.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to, I'll actually mention it before we go, because Andy has invited me to come to Belgium to present my first book on the Knights Templar, The Way of the Rose, and possibly do a workshop and lectures and a few things. So I will be going back to Belgium, which for me is certainly Flanders, the land of Godfrey of Bouillon, who's very important for me. And I lived in Belgium for almost 4 years in Brussels, and I went to school there. So Belgium, for me, I have a special love for the Belgian people and the country. It's very, very, very in my heart. Hopefully someday I'll be able to say it's a Templar heart, but I feel it is. So I'm very, very excited about that, and meeting everybody in the order, and Bob and Martina, who attended the wine Zoom. I have to thank her. She was wonderful there. So, and Johan and everybody. So thank you very much. You've enriched my life. But the Templars do that, don't they? They have a way of making your life better, I think. So thank you, Andy. Thank you. Bye.
Red wine, white wines, rosé wines, liqueur wines. Colors are sensations, aromas, flavors, the memory of a bottled time. Unique and genuine wines. Shared moments. Wines to have out of the box. Discover Templar's Estate.